What's up, data pipeliners? Welcome back to another episode on writing data pipelines with Kedro. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about pipeline pull and pipeline package. These are two CLI commands that are released with Kedro that allow you to take advantage of your modular pipeline. So let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, what I have here is a very simple Kedro pipeline. This is the example pipeline that you get when you do Kedro new, and then you hit yes as an example, and I've called it Kedro pipeline pull. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be experimenting with the Kedro pipeline command. And so this option inside of the command allows you to do a lot of things with your Kedro pipelines. With 0.16.3, they've put a much more emphasis on making pipelines modular, so reusing pipelines, this pipeline reusability. And so in order to address this reusability, they've added a few commands to this pipeline option. So the first is pipeline create. And so this allows you to create a Kedro pipeline from the command line as a template for how you write your pipelines. And so if I type in Kedro pipeline create, and then we'll give it a name, we'll just call it DE1. What we're going to get is we're going to get template code that is named with DE1 or namespace with DE1. So you can see here on the list, we've created pipeline tests as well as configuration files, and then finally the actual Python source code itself. And so that exists in their respective places. We have it in source, tests, and configuration. The pipelines, when they're created this way, are very standard. So if we look inside of here, there's nothing inside of the nodes.py, and there's only a very bare minimum pipeline creation function. But it also comes with your README, which is really great. And so for us, we're just going to have a very simple pipeline. We're going to take the node and a Lambda function, and what we'll do is we'll just print out the head of the X. And so what we're going to be getting into this pipeline is we're just going to pull in the example iris data. The output is going to be none, of course. And so what this will do is it'll read the example iris data and then print out the first X number of rows from that data. Now, in order to package this up and reuse this pipeline, you have to do a few things, and this is important. The first is that you actually need to have this pipeline as this kind of like parent pipeline or this root pipeline. So here we're going to type in DE1 as the pipeline, and then we're going to import this pipeline right here. So here I've created the pipeline underneath this key of DE1. And so that means that I can do Kedro run, and I can even type in pipeline DE1, and this will actually run that DE1 pipeline. So your pipeline needs to be runnable from the command line in order for you to use these packaging functions. So now if I type in Kedro pipeline, let's take a look at the command line again. And here we have the create, which we just did, delete, which we don't want to do just yet, as well as list, package, and pull. Describe is actually a very nice helper function. This is kind of unrelated, but it allows you to see what nodes exist. And in this case, we're using a Lambda, so unfortunately, the node parsing doesn't really work here. If we were to use a proper function with a proper name, then you would be able to see this guy. But the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do Kedro pipeline package. And what this is going to do is it will take our modular pipeline that we just created, it's going to package it up, and then make it available for other people to use. So if we do Kedro pipeline package and then we type in DE1, it's going to go into our Kedro project. It's going to find the DE1 pipeline, and it's going to pull out all the resources that it uses. So everything inside of that modular pipeline folder, it's going to pull out, as well as the configurations and any of the tests that we've created for it. So now we've actually created a package, and that package now lives inside of the source dist folder right here inside of the project. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete the pipeline from our project. So I'm just going to go here and manually go into our configuration, go into our source, as well as go into our tests. I'm going to just delete this guy from the project. So now let's just pretend I don't have a DE1 pipeline. In fact, we're going to comment this guy out as well. Now, if I don't have a DE1 pipeline, if I wanted to get one, what I would need to do is maybe on your internal servers or internal Git repository, you guys can distribute the wheel file that was created with our pipeline package. Once we have access to that wheel file, we're going to download that wheel file. All we need to do is type in Kedro pipeline pull. And this will take an argument of the path to the wheel file. And so here we're putting in the path to the DE1 wheel file for Kedro pipeline pull. We hit enter, and what it's going to do is it's going to read from that package, expand that package, and install all of the files necessary to run that pipeline. And so it's really cool. It's just like magic here. And so here we have our DE1 pipeline yet again. And here on the left-hand side, you can see we have the pipeline that we created earlier with the example iris data. And we can reuse that again in our pipeline. And it's almost as if we never deleted it in the first place. So if I hit Control Z a bunch of times here, we should be able to create our DE1 pipeline. And when we type in Kedro run pipeline DE1, we should be able to rerun that pipeline and get the head of that data. Now, there's a few caveats with using modular pipelines. The first is that if you want to import any libraries or any code from the rest of your project, you need to actually make sure that that code lives inside of the modular pipeline folder. So for example, if I were to take this function here and separate that function into a separate file, we're going to call this print head. If I want to reuse that pipeline, if I want to be able to package that guy, I need to make sure that I am not referring to the current project in the code. So right here in KPP, this is the current project. But if I want to reuse this pipeline in another project, I need to make sure that that KPP doesn't exist. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use relative imports. So we're going to just do a .lib, which means that we're going to be pulling the printhead function from the library file that is located directly inside of the package itself. Now, this, of course, lends to some problems. You could potentially have code duplication, these kinds of things. It'll definitely depend on the way that you guys have decided on the standards of how you write your pipelines, whether you want to have your library functions maybe in another pipeline, you can import that pipeline, or if you want to keep your library functions in part of your starter. There's a lot of ways that you can go about this because it's very flexible, but it'll be up to each of the individual teams to decide on what works best for them. But at the very least, if you want to import files, you have to make sure that that file exists inside of the folder with a relative package name. The other thing to note, when you are pulling the package, you have to make sure that your project actually runs. Your project has to be runnable. If there are any errors in your project, then your package pull is going to fail. So for example, here I have DE1 that is missing from the imports. If I try to run this project, it's going to fail because it can't do the import. And as a result, the Kedro pipeline pull is also going to fail. So what I need to do, let's just comment this guy out one more time. And there it goes, the pipeline pull works. And here we have our library file, as well as the pipeline file with the library relative path. And that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for joining me. If you guys made it this far, make sure that you button that like, sub that subscribe, and ring that ding if you want to know when we are pipelining. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.